'69 was my year. I thought everything was going to shift. I was going to become this incredibly powerful, creative, gifted, brilliant person. We all felt that way.
There was a Sunset Strip, you could go to the whiskey, you could party, a lot of drugs, a lot of drinking, a lot of fun, and free love was all over the place. It was a great place to live.
Really felt like the most magical place to live and be, and anything could happen there. We all thought, wow, we're going to make a huge difference in this world. We are going to inspire and uplift those squares. That's what it was like.
And it really was a perfect storm. I mean, all those things that coming together, wanting to leave the 50s behind, and the drugs and music, and then the influence of the drugs had on the music. We really thought we had discovered something new. We really thought we discovered the answer, drugs. Now, sorry, that isn't the answer we found out, but we really thought that was really, wait a minute, we really believed, for a while anyway, that was the answer.
You're young and you think you know what the hell's going on, and that's exactly what we felt in 1969. But we didn't know. And it can turn ugly really fast.
Charlie was a really sharp little man coming out of prison and jail, and so if you can survive there in those institutions, imagine what you can do on the street where everybody's peace, love, and tie-dye and stoned. Charlie must have been in heaven, I can only imagine, because he went right to the hate, right to San Francisco. Charlie was the fox, was in the hen house. Dracula was in charge of the blood bank.
He found all of these crazy kids running around, zonked out, believing in peace and love and brotherhood and sleeping with one another. He collected girls because he prostituted them. That's one of the ways that he survived. They took care of him.
He would tell them that they had father issues and talk about, the damage their father had done to them. So he kind of sucked them in.
They all would have had normal lives had they not met Charlie. Patricia Krenwinkel is probably the most interesting because she was already working when she met Manson. She was working at an insurance company. She met him at a house in Malibu at a party where he was singing. So there was this man with a guitar singing. And he saw her and he asked her to come with him. He took her into the bedroom. Patricia Krenwinkel was truly homely. She had this hormonal imbalance that caused hair to grow all over her body. She was very insecure, to say the least. And he took her in this room and he said, take off all your clothes and look in the mirror. I want you to see how beautiful you are. And she left with him, left her paycheck in her car, and never came back. That to me is the key to Manson. He said, I told people what they wanted to hear about themselves.
The time keeps on flying. Think you're loving, baby, and all you're doing is crying. Can you feel?
When Manson came down to Los Angeles from the hate in San Francisco, and Mary Bruner and Sadie or Susan Atkins, and I don't know if anybody else was with them, they ended up sort of living around, and Charlie was trying to get into the music scene.
Charlie could sit down and play a guitar, 3 chords, with flies and sing a song about the flies landing on him. He did have a talent. In fact, if you tried to describe Charlie's music, it kind of was rap music. It was just kind of a conscious flow.
You can't be true. You can tell those lies, baby, but you're only fooling you.
He ran across Dennis Wilson, and Dennis was, of course, with the Beach Boys, and he was intrigued by Charlie.
Dennis called me up, said, hey, Greg, you got to come down and meet this guy. He called him the Wizard at the time. He was very interested in becoming part of the music scene. This is what Charlie had his eye on. That's why Dennis, the Beach Boys, and then Terry Melcher, producer, more than anything, that was one of his main desires.
Manson met Dennis Wilson and discovered this, oh wow, this palace here, and some of his followers started living there. Manson and the family would have parties there, and they kind of trashed the place.
The Beach Boys were going on the road, so Dennis had to go out on the road. He says, Greg, man, he says, can you get me out of here? So yeah, I went to the office, I hired movers, we moved out like in one day.
So Dennis Wilson was deeply connected to the commune. I think most people know that the Beach Boys recorded one of Charlie's compositions that was originally called Cease to Exist on their 1968 album 2020. But Dennis Wilson rearranged the song and changed the lyrics to cease to resist rather than cease to exist, and turned it into an ordinary love song.
See, Charlie wasn't sophisticated enough when it comes to the music business to know what he gave away. So Dennis paid him for it, but I don't think Charlie realized what he was doing. He was giving an intellectual property away that could earn money. And that was one of the things Charlie went after Dennis for. And Dennis was saying, you know, come on, Charlie, play the game.
I mean, as a kid, those lyrics, because we covered the song in '81, and I don't think I really paid much attention to
Well,
the
they're
lyrics.
very simple, so they can be taken many ways. Like Cease to Exist is like, it's kind of a love song.
Submission is a gift.
Yeah, it's like kind of like, you know, love is free, come to your brother, you know, make love to me, make love to them.
There's a lyric, submission is a gift, come on, give it to your brother.
I think he was trying to exploit the free love movement at the time for his own benefit.
Cease to exist is saying, you know, stop being, you know, let me tell you what you are. I hear it now as pure 100% unadulterated brainwashing to drugged out teenagers.
Give up your world. Come on, you can be. I'm your kind.
Charlie was really counting on Melcher to do something with him, take him into the studio. And Terry, I know, and he gave him the old producer's speech. He told Charlie, you know, Charlie, your music is really good, it's really different, I really like your music, but it's just not my cup of tea. I don't know what to do with you in the studio. And I think that really put Charlie into a really downhill mood.
Walk on, I love you, pretty girl. My life is yours.
He found a chord in young people because he told them what they wanted to hear. He's a con man. He conned people all of his life. He had to survive.
We all know that he had some sort of mind control. He probably learned in prison, and he focused it on these women that he carefully chose because they, you know, didn't have much self-esteem.
And he said he loved them. I don't think he did, but he, you know, he slept with a lot of them. He indoctrinated them into this idea that he was God.
I think those young women were looking for someone who was sort of a father figure. He was older. He was quite a bit older than they were.
The basic core of it was a group marriage. It was not a cult. You had Charles Manson gets out of prison with a very high libido in the summer of love and sees that free love and orgiastic sex is now the accepted thing. And he went for it. And his relationship with these women is what it was about.
One of the things he said to me is, my name's Manson, I'm the son of man. Well, he tried to turn that into a thing that he was Jesus returned.
You look at these girls and they look like the cute, you know, like unapproachable, you know, girls
Older
at the
sisters.
Older sisters, yeah. Or the foxy girl at the beach.
They were sweet, they were nice girls. I had a crush on Ruth Ann Morehouse. I suppose a lot of people did, but anyway. And Charlie used to dangle her around because, anyway, one of the girls, they were nice. They were very, very loyal to Charlie. I mean, he was the boss. He was the man. He ran the show.
Every one of the followers, in a way, was a victim of Charlie. Charlie was the evil genius.
During the trial, as I said, all of the family members who testified that they believed what Charlie was feeding them was the absolute, honest-to-God gospel. That Charlie was a Messiah, that he was going to save them, that they would go to the desert, that they would find a bottomless pit, that they would hide there, and after the race war, they would come out, and Charlie would be king of the world.
Charlie loved the Beatles, and he thought they were talking to him. And so Helter Skelter became his watchword, and they were going to go out to the desert. The black men and the white people were going to have this war, and they were going to hide out in the desert. I mean, it was so bizarre to me that I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it, because once again, it was the 60s, and people were getting stoned and so on. So, okay, Charlie, you know.
Manson's whole ethos was that somehow he was part of the pop culture business. He was like, he wrote a song for the Beach Boys, right? So he thought he was part of the whole scene. He was convinced he was important. And that's, I think, why he picked Helter Skelter, you know, a Beatles song, to be his kind of motto. Oh, it's very LA-centric too. He's a striver trying to get into the music business. And surrounded by kind of Hollywood drifters.
They were at a place on Gresham Street in Canoga Park where it started, and they would spend hours listening to the Beatles' White Album while they were on LSD. And what they determined was that the Beatles weren't really the Beatles. The Beatles were the locusts written about in Revelation 9 of the Bible. The locusts who were going to fly out of the bottomless pit and start Armageddon. And through the White Album, the Beatles or the locusts were sending messages to blacks to rise up and start the revolution. The White Album plays a key role in this case. So you have Helter Skelter, you have a song in there called Piggies. Piggies out with their piggy wives, clutching their forks and knives to eat their bacon. What they need is a damn good whacking.
I put my soul into the sound. That's in my music, see? But that's what they won't let me get out. And then every time they keep that music out, then all the kids rise up and they kill a bunch of people. And then they say, well, oh, you're fucked up. Well, why are we fucked up? Who just says you can put your music up over my music? You dig what I'm saying?
I received a telephone call very early in the morning and said, my God, Rona, you have to go over to Sharon Tate's house. And I immediately threw on some clothes and got in my car and drove around until I got to Cielo. I think I was the first journalist that was up there. They had a driveway that was kind of a little steep, and so I started to walk up the hill. I could see there were a couple of bodies up on this next level. The police were all around, and the detectives were there, and they said, Miss Barrett, you got to move. You got to go out. I said, just tell me, is Sharon Tate inside? I can't say anything I do not know. Just move. So I started to walk down the hill. A very dear friend of mine who was an agent named Bill Tennant, I yelled out, Bill, just tell me, is she inside? Is she inside? And he looked at me and went, that's it. Just a little nod of the head. And I just like, I couldn't believe it. And she was murdered. The baby was dead. And everybody else who might have been there were dead.
Sharon Tate and her friends were killed in Los Angeles, and it was the biggest story that had hit LA in years.
Sharon Tate was the last to get murdered. And she was begging and pleading with Susan Atkins not to kill her. And Susan Atkins said, she looked at her in the eyes and she said, "Look, bitch, I don't care about you or your baby. You're gonna die and you better be ready for it, and I don't feel a thing about it." Wojciech Frykowski was Abigail Folger's boyfriend, very close friends with Roman Polanski. Frykowski was asleep on the front sofa and Watson pointed the gun at him, woke him up and said, "I'm the devil here to do the devil's work." Abigail Folger was the heiress to the Folger coffee fortune. And Stephen Parent, talk about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Parent came up apparently to try and sell a clock radio. Watson went up to the car, pointing the gun at Parent, and Parent begged for his life. He said, "Please don't shoot me. I won't say anything. I'm just on my way out. I won't tell anybody." And Watson shot him 4 times at point blank range, and then went on from there.
When the LaBiancas had been killed, and I remember saying, "Oh my God, it's happened again."
When Leno's body was discovered, he had a pillowcase over his head, and he had a carving fork in his abdomen, and Krenwinkel had carved in large letters the word "war." When Leno was taken to the coroner's office and the pillowcase was taken off, they found that he had a knife with the handle sticking out of one side and the blade traversing his neck, partly sticking out of the other side.
That really set off the chain of fear that spread all over the area, because people felt that maybe there were these serial killers at large who were just killing people, or maybe it was a copycat killing from the night before. Whatever it was, it terrified Los Angeles.
I think everyone went crazy for a moment. Everyone was scared. No one wanted to go out. No, everyone wanted protection. You know, anything could happen to anyone. That's what I recall, including myself. There emerged this list of people that Manson had, and I was subject to some death threats, or the letters that said, "You are next." I'll never be able to say that the threats were really linked to the Manson, Sharon Tate murder, but I can't say that they were not.
There were all sorts of rumors that went around, and it wasn't until Susan Atkins, who was arrested with some other people in an unrelated crime, was in the Sybil Brand Institute and decided to confess to her cellmates. Chaos. It was insanity. In those days, they allowed camera crews in the hallways outside the courtroom, and the court hallway was so jammed with cameras you could barely move. When Manson finally was let in, and he was this little teeny character with scraggly hair and a buckskin jacket, and obviously was enjoying the whole scene. There were all kinds of crazy things going on. The Manson women were camped on the sidewalk outside. They were threatening to immolate themselves if Manson was convicted. And then the ultimate was when Manson got upset and he propelled himself across the counsel table at the judge with a pencil in his hand, screaming, "Someone should cut your head off, old man."
The first day of trial, Charlie had carved an X into his head, and he issued a statement through his girls on the corner that he had X'd himself out of the world. And I believe the next day the women defendants had X's also. I believed that Charlie sent Tex and the others out the first night for 2 reasons. One was to put the fear of God into Terry Melcher, because Melcher used to live where Sharon Tate lived. But the other was to actually have a copycat murder to get Bobby Beausoleil out of jail.
I met Bobby Beausoleil in San Francisco And I had a huge crush on him, like most girls did. He was gorgeous. His nickname was Cupid. That's how, I mean, he had the most beautiful mouth and everything. He was just slightly manipulative with the girls, but I would never have imagined he could have committed such crimes.
I had 20 minutes. I interviewed Manson. He did try his staring tricks, of course, and so I'm a pretty good starer too, and it was only 20 minutes, so we just stared at each other for 20 minutes. The Manson family decided to hold a press conference at Spawn Movie Ranch. They wanted to sell Manson's rock album, and they thought they'd make some money, and the girls invited us into the trailer. So being young and thinking nothing could possibly happen to us, we went in the trailer and we all sat around, and they had this little baby named Elf, and he was quite filthy, but we passed him. He was being passed around among all the women, and we took our turns holding Elf, and we talked about amazing things like chocolate chip cookie recipes. It was just like girl talk.
Relationship with Elf, it's really different from any other baby I've ever seen before.
Yeah, well, we all take care of him. In other words, we're all his mother. You know, we all treat him as our own. You know, and actually, we belong to him. You know, because that's how it is with babies. They're very aware. You know, and they get your attention any way they can. You know, so actually they own you. But like, we follow him. He's our leader, really, because he'll show us. Babies can show you a lot because they're totally at peace with themselves, and you can get a lot of peace from them if you can sit down and be with them for long periods of time.
The girls were insistent that I must buy a copy of the record, and I kept, I mean, I was making $120 a week for Radio News West, and $5 for a record was outrageous, especially one that I didn't know that I would have any interest in. So they said, that's okay, we know you. You're running around downtown all the time. We see you pass by us when we're sitting on the sidewalk there. Every time you go past us, give us a quarter. So I agreed to do that. So I have the record, and this is the record. And then even after they carved X's in their foreheads and were crawling down the streets, I paid them a quarter.
There was so much weird going on, so much weird. It was the ultimate trial of the 60s. It was a trial of the whole era.
You're never going to think of Los Angeles as the major crime city the way they did with the Manson murder.
Life magazine published the photograph of Charles Manson on the cover, and he looked wild and crazy. And I think people in the United States seem to like horror pictures. They go to the movies and they see the Halloween movies and everything. Well, here the people had a real live monster who could convince young people to commit murder for him.
After the Manson file came out, and that was really the first book that ever even presented Charles Manson, not only in a sympathetic way, but merely presented him as a human being. So it created quite a stir, and I said on national TV that Vincent Bugliosi had conducted a show trial, that what he presented as the narrative of the crimes, this whole helter-skelter race war Beatles theory, was not true.
There had never been a cult like this, and there never was again. It had so many facets to it. The preying on young people, The ability of a single leader to use drugs, sex, and rock and roll to get people to follow him was unprecedented. And it resonated. He is famous forever.
It's a persona that now has a life of its own.
I remember when Helter Skelter came out. That was like the second wave. That's when I first learned about it. And it was just, it was horrifying. It's so much more complex because the pathology of the people who committed these murders weren't like your 1 in a billion serial killer, lone wolf. It's like these people who look like the Beatles. Charles Manson was kind of like an act of a rebellion to us. And I have to say, there was never any kind of worship the philosophy of Charles Manson. I wonder if the Manson thing would have lived on so many decades had there not been the connection between the Beatles' White Album. Because the Beatles' White Album, of course, like the Beatles have had longevity through all these years. So there's anytime a person discovers a White Album, they always, oh yeah, this is that album, the Charles Manson, and it kind of feeds off of itself. So I think
fanning the flames?
The Beatles have really helped. Young people discover the White Album every generation, and all of the baggage connected to it, and the mystique connected to it.
Ultimate PR.
I think without the soundtrack of the Beatles, I don't know if he would have had, if the Manson thing would have had the longevity.
The change came because, I think, people saw a crazy side of drugs that they had not seen before. I mean, I covered a lot of love-ins, and everybody was dancing around and waving beads and clanging things and hugging and kissing and all that, but they weren't killing each other.
Peace, love, and the drugs and everything. And it was a nice illusion, and it went poof. It was gone, really gone. I mean, it was so definitive. The axe had fallen, the door had closed, literally. And Charlie brought the 60s to an end.
Yeah, I think that any naivete that remained about the summer of love and about hippies and about counterculture was wiped out by it. Now it was a much more hard-edged society.
It was scary to think about, and then of course when it was hippies, it was like, oh no, this is going to be a scourge on us all. And of course it was, because we were seeing the hippie movement, the free love, all that, drugs, was seen as a negative thing after Manson did what he did, because he was a hippie, but of course he was not. He grew his hair, that's all. That's the only kind of hippie he was.
I do think that the Tate-LaBianca murders have made a big impact on this whole area, because he's become some kind of a folk hero, which is scary.
This whole motherfucking attention thing, I don't need nobody's attention about nothing. I can do what I do by myself. I don't need nobody. I ain't looking for no followers. I'm looking to survive.
I mean, if you think the persona of evil, it's media-wise and public-wise, they really, I mean, if you ask people, they would say, yeah, well, there's Hitler and there's Manson. Really? That's it, huh?
But Manson had a streak of pure evil. I guess the story is that it persists till now, that he's dead finally, and yet it's as if the curse has not disappeared. And it hangs over everyone who was ever involved with him.
But I know we all get our turn, and I love you. Never learn not to love you. Never learn not to love you. Never learn not to love you.